Well, I started it as one of the biggest Cavs believers, I think, out there in the media, picking the series to go 7 games, and felt largely validated by what happened last night. But, yeah, if Kyrie Irving is done, it's just such a huge loss. I mean, the last night's game, the reason the Cavaliers lost, they were plus 10 when they had both LeBron and Kyrie on the court, even with a little bit of a rough stretch in overtime. But they were outscored by 5 points with LeBron James on the bench, and they were outscored by 15 with Kyrie on the bench. So that just shows you how important he is to them to have that second option offensively.
No doubt. And he obviously, with the knee injury sustained in Game 1 last night, he said it felt different than the previous injury that he had, and we'll see what ends up happening for him for Game number 2. Now, Dellavedova had played well in the run that get them here, but is this a completely different story in a matchup with Steph Curry?
Yeah, for a variety of reasons. I mean, he's a more difficult test than guys like Derrick Rose and Jeff Teague. Dellavedova is a really pesky defender and was able to bother them with his pressure on the ball. One of the things that Curry can do differently in that matchup is go off the ball like he did a lot in that Houston series, move around quite a bit and lose Dellavedova that way, get free for a spot-up jump shot. And then offensively, Dellavedova had 3 assists, did not have a turnover in his 9 minutes, but the Cleveland offense just kind of fell apart in that stretch when he was in there.
Kevin Pelton's with us, ESPN.com, and taking a look at the NBA Finals last night. 1-0, the Warriors lead it. The one question I had about the Warriors, Kevin, was, you see these teams that win the regular season, they get all the wins, but it's their first time there. Did they expend too much energy in the regular season trying to be the best team in the league? I think them making the finals kind of shows you that. But last night, did you have any concerns about them coming into the finals? And if so, did they answer them?
Not really specifically. I mean, I think the one thing we've seen is that they've had a tendency throughout this postseason to kind of take the home crowd at Oracle and the amazing edge that they have for granted, and they come out slowly, they play sloppily early in the game, and we saw that again with Cleveland building an early lead, just the third time all season the Warriors had trailed by double digits after one quarter. But there's a reason still that they've gone, I believe, 47-3 at home this season, because they're able to kind of play their way out of it even against the very best teams, and they made up that deficit midway through the second quarter.
If you're somebody who just watches the NBA Finals or just kind of watches the playoffs, obviously, if I ask you, how's this Cleveland team different? They don't have Irving or Love, but is this Cleveland team, it's better? Is it better than the Miami teams that LeBron was on? It was obviously better than the Heat, the Miami team, the Cleveland team he played back in 2007. But where do you put this Cleveland team on the list of the LeBron Finals entries?
I think it'd be in there with last year's Miami team, which we saw really kind of fell apart in the finals against the San Antonio Spurs. The difference is, Miami, you had sort of more star talent with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, but the question by the end of that series was they couldn't find 5 players to put on the court who can contribute at both ends. And that's where this Cleveland team actually is pretty good, because, when Kyrie is healthy, they've got 6, I think, pretty good two-way options. Last night it was Iman Shumpert that ended regulation on the bench, but they've often gone small in those situations and not played Timofey Mozgov and Tristan Thompson together. So that's where they have the edge over the 2014 Heat. But I'd say it's close between those two teams. Not as good, certainly, as his championship teams.
Kevin Pelton, ESPN.com. How about Andre Iguodala last night? I thought he had a really great performance. He was ragged on a lot here, myself included. He just, he wasn't a star player. And I think, you sign a contract, you get that kind of money, you're labeled as the best guy, the franchise type of player. I think he was miscasted in that role. This was the role we always had hoped he would eventually turn into. How important is Iguodala in this series?
Well, yeah, anytime you can bring him off the bench as your sixth man, you're living pretty well if you've got that scenario. But he gives them a different look defensively. There was a lot of talk last season about Klay Thompson being the best Warriors perimeter defender, and I think the last couple of series have kind of reminded everyone, hey, this Iguodala guy, he's pretty good at this too. I mean, one-on-one defense isn't even necessarily his strength. He's a really good help defender, good at playing the passing lanes, as Sixers fans know. But he's done a terrific job, first against James Harden and now against LeBron, who shot 4 of 14 last night, according to ESPN Stats and Info's tracking, as compared to 12 of 22 against other guys when it was a half-court setting.
LeBron ends up with monster numbers. He was the best player on the floor last night. What was his overall, some people would say, well, late in the game, I thought he was the best player. I thought he ran out of gas a little bit there at the end, but, he doesn't have a lot of help. How would you surmise the game that LeBron played last night?
I tend to agree with that about him running out of gas. I mean, if Iman Shumpert's shot went down, which it seems like everyone in the arena thought that it was, would have been one of the crazier finishes to a finals game in recent memory. But if that happens, then we're talking today about what an amazing game LeBron had, how he might be good enough to take down the Cavaliers by himself, or take down the Warriors rather by himself. And I don't think we should completely change that analysis just because of how much he struggled and the Cavaliers struggled as a team in overtime. I still question whether they can win enough games in the series even with a healthy Kyrie playing so heavily through LeBron. But when he's making shots, the kind of the mid-range pull-up type shots, as well as he did last night, then that is a viable strategy for them, certainly.
In the end, is it LeBron's bench? Is it the rest of the team just not being good enough? What was the factor in this game that they are down 1-0?
Yeah, I mean, they're down to basically an 8-man rotation without Kevin Love. And a couple of those guys, Dellavedova, like we talked about, James Jones, who's a really one-dimensional player at this stage of his career, they've been good over the course of the Eastern Conference playoffs, but got exposed a little bit last night. And we're down to 6 quality guys against a Golden State team that can go 10 deep and get contributions from guys like, Iguodala coming off the bench, certainly, but also Mo Spates, who was questionable whether he'd even be part of the rotation after his injury that kept him out of the Western Conference Finals. That's a lot to ask of the stars to make up that difference. And then if you take Kyrie Irving out, suddenly you're really low on guys you trust.
Kevin Pelton, ESPN.com. I thought last night, too, in the overtime, correct me if I'm wrong, they went a little small in the overtime. Golden State did last night. You saw Draymond Green playing some center position there, and that allowed them to kind of keep Green and Iguodala on the floor together. And I thought that the quickness was evident in overtime when we just talked. LeBron was kind of winded.
Yeah, I like that in terms of being able to keep Iguodala on the court, like you said, and then also Green and Harrison Barnes have all those players out there. You kind of need Harrison Barnes for the shooting he provides as well. But, it was only a couple possessions of that before Kyrie Irving went down. It was a 4-point game still at that point. I think, could have gone either way. But Irving, when he was banged up, they had a possession where they were playing 4-on-5. Warriors get an open Harrison Barnes corner 3 out of that, push the lead to 7. Irving limps off to the locker room, and that I think was pretty much it for them. They were finished at that point.
Not only that, too, I thought that Tristan Thompson, he was a beast out there. It seemed like earlier in the game, you see this guy really controlling the boards, but it seemed to me watching the game that Cleveland didn't do a lot with their second chance opportunities.
No, they were 1 of 11 on second chance opportunities in this game, which is incredible. They got a lot of offensive rebounds, especially early, and Thompson is just unbox outable. I don't know if that's a word.
Somebody tweeted that he's like a Cadillac on the low block.
Yeah, you're just not moving him out of there at this point. But the Warriors did just enough, and then were able to stay at home on the Cleveland shooters and prevent that kick out for the second chance 3 that really is where those offensive rebounds become devastating.
I know LeBron after the game looked very frustrated. He looked like a guy who, he had a defeated look to him. Did you get the same sense that here's a guy who just understands again that maybe I don't have the horses?
And I think the Kyrie Irving injury really plays into that. It would be a missed opportunity if they had lost this game and he was healthy. You need to steal a game at some point in Oracle Arena, and this might have been their best chance to do it. But they would still probably feel like they had a reasonable chance based on the way how even this game was for 48 minutes. But if Kyrie Irving's not healthy, then it's hard to see them winning more than a game, I think.
Kevin, does it matter to you if we say at the end of this, LeBron James been to the finals 6 times and lost 4 of them?
Not particularly. I mean, there's so many factors on both sides. He's gotten there through relatively weak Eastern Conferences, but he's also done it with some supporting cast who I don't think almost anyone else would be able to take to the finals. So it's no surprise, given the imbalance between the East and the West, that formula hasn't been able to work as well in the finals.
Yeah, we'll see how this thing goes out. I don't know if the word on Kyrie is going to be out today or tomorrow or what they're going to be announcing with him, but it doesn't look good for him. That means it doesn't look good for LeBron and the Cavs. And you wonder how much of a difference maker is Love in this series, too. I mean, entering the series, when he got hurt, it seemed like, wow, Cleveland might not even get through. And then it was almost like they didn't miss a beat. And now you wonder how much different this team is with Love, because it seems like without him, they have to play LeBron down in the post a lot more, which by the 2-minute mark makes him look like he's out of gas.
Yeah, and just from a numerical standpoint, having one more guy who's part of the rotation who's able to play 35, 40 minutes again would make a huge difference. And then also having Love as another guy who can create his own shot when LeBron is on the bench. All of those factors, I think, no surprise this is the series where they really started to miss him. The performances of guys like Dellavedova and James Jones helped them get through the last two rounds, but those were going to be difficult to sustain.
He's Kevin Pelton, the NBA Finals on Sunday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Always enjoy talking to Kevin as the draft gets a little closer. Can't wait to hear some of your insight on that as well. But we are enjoying Game 1 in the books. And Kevin, will hopefully talk to you soon down the road.
Sounds good. Look forward to talking some draft.